Talking Nerdy Vlogcast with your host, Pablo Gunner.
And Daniel Lister, the King of Paragons.
And we are here to talk about nerdy things. And we're going to talk about Captain America, Civil War. The video game, Until Dawn, on PS4. The manga, Tokyo Ghoul Volume 2. Tokyo Ghoul is about a teenage kid, Kaneki, who is a human that had a ghoul organ transplant. In this world, ghouls are like humans most of the time, except when they feed on human flesh. Volume 2 has Kaneki working at Cafe Anteku, which is kind of like a safe house for ghouls. He is also there to learn how to live as a ghoul or like a ghoul. Also, investigators start going after non-violent ghouls in the same neighborhood, or ward as they call it. Tuka, his co-worker and a fellow ghoul, is forced to take Kaneki to the 4th ward to get him measured for his own ghoul mask by a character called Yuta or Uta. Anyways, ghouls wear masks because they want to mask themselves from the investigators, or doves as they call them. That way they can't identify them later. The owner of Cafe Anteku, Mr. Yashimura, sends Kaneki on a food run with Yomo. In doing so, Kaneki learns that there are nobler ways to attain food than killing humans. Anteku takes in a mother and her little girl. That same woman and her child are being hunted by the investigators. Something that the anime does better than the manga is building up the relationship that Kaneki has with the little girl and her mom. Anyways, a tragic experience leads to Kaneki wanting Tuka to train him how to fight so he can protect those he cares about. That same experience results in Tuka taking action against the investigators. In doing so, you find out that there are different types of ghouls with various strengths and weaknesses. Lastly, we see Kaneki receive his mask. As terrific as this book was, and as much as I want to give it a strong buy, I can't, just because of the fact that they do the build in that relationship so much better in the anime. So that being said, it still definitely deserves a buy. Until Dawn is a suspense, thriller, survival game. It relies heavily on motion capture. It genuinely feels like you're playing a movie. It has a star cast consisting of Hayden Panettiere from Heroes, Brett Dalton, who plays Ward on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Peter Stormare as the analyst, who's been in a crap ton of stuff, Rami Malek, who was the Pharaoh in Night of the Museum, in the Museum, one of those, and of course many other actors. The gameplay itself mostly consists of this or that choices, like choose to go this way, choose to go that way, choose to do this, choose to do that, as well as many QTEs, which if you're on the up and up, that stands for quick time events. There's also some shooting elements, but not that much. As far as the story goes, it starts off as a prank amongst friends to this one girl. The girl runs off, her sister goes to her aid, and the girls end up falling to their death. At least that's what they think has happened to them, because they have not found their bodies on this mountain. So a year later, the brother invites you all back to the mansion, back to this old lodge. It starts off as kind of like a murder mystery type thing. Like I said, suspense thriller. The kind of thing where it's like, hey, they played this prank on her, things play out, and it's pretty crazy. It's pretty intense. So like I said, it's along this mountain, but it's at the lodge, but there's also a mine and a sanitarium and these underground tunnels. So you get involved in all this. What's crazy is that you play different characters throughout the story, so that you switch characters, and they're all friends and stuff like that. But it's just interesting how like the relationships have changed throughout the year. Different people are dating different people and stuff like that. I have to say that this is easily one of the most unique gaming experiences I've had, despite it being similar to the Telltale games. Part of what makes it so unique is, as I said, you play as different characters, but you can die yourself, and that changes the story. But you can also cause other people's deaths as well, especially when it comes to friends. So it's crazy because it adds a lot of replay value, because when you beat it, which only takes about 6 to 8 hours, they show you like, oh hey, these people died at these times, or like these people survived this long. They show their time of death, and you're like, oh crap. So you get this idea of, oh, so there's a possibility that you can save almost all of your crew, almost all of your friends. And it's like, okay, now I want to replay it because of that. And not only do I want to replay it, there's collectibles, so you want to replay it so that you can collect all those things as well. Myself, as a gamer who doesn't have a lot of free time, this game was a fantastic fit for me. Nonetheless, my grade is a strong rent / weak buy, just because it is a short game. Even though it does have replay value, it's not worth $60 from the get-go, but I would definitely say, like I said, once it's cheaper, definitely worth buying. Captain America: Civil War. Okay, so starting off, it's action-packed. It reels us in, right? And so it makes a lot of sense as to why Iron Man is on the stance he is. He's trying to correct all the things that he messed up. Because that's what, everyone jokes with the memes and stuff, and they're like, well, Tony, you're the one that messed everything up. Yes, and that's exactly why you feel responsible to fix it all.
Exactly.
Because you're the one that's messed up the most by creating Ultron and, having weapons and all these other things.
Weapons,
all these situations.
You're creating all these great technologies, but then if they're falling into the wrong hands, it's creating this chaos.
Exactly.
Because from there, then we go into the whole everybody meets up at the Avengers base because General Ross from The Incredible Hulk 2008, so we finally have a connection from that movie where that's kind of been the movie left out in the cold, unfortunately, because Edward Norton stopped being the Hulk. Right. So General Ross is there to present them with the Sokovian Accords because the United Nations want to now keep the Avengers in check and say, you can't do what you do unless we say it's okay.
It also goes to show that why Cap is the stance that he's at. He knows what it's like when something big controls something small like that. A team, he saw that with S.H.I.E.L.D. Winter Soldier. He saw the exact effects of that. And so that's why he feels the exact opposite of him. Whereas Tony's like, hey, I'm responsible for Ultron. He's going, I'm responsible for kind of fixing what happened in Winter Soldier with those helicarriers.
Right.
So he's seeing the exact opposite side of that argument.
Yes.
And that's where they butt heads.
Right, because Cap was of course saying, hey, when I operated under S.H.I.E.L.D., and then S.H.I.E.L.D. turned out to be corrupt from with the inside. And this is already why this makes this a good movie, because you can see both sides of the argument.
Right,
so
right.
That's where you pick sides, essentially.
So it also goes to show that, like, it's a perfect successor to Winter Soldier. It's a perfect sequel to Winter Soldier.
And Age of Ultron.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. But you don't need to watch Age of Ultron. I feel like you could just jump straight into knowing enough from Winter Soldier.
Sure.
You should definitely see Winter Soldier.
Yeah, and if you know these characters enough by now, which everybody does, you can get into the story without necessarily having to see certain previous sequels.
Right. In fact, I've talked to people who haven't seen a lot of the other movies, and they're like, it was just great on its own. Right.
So we're already globetrotting quite a bit in this movie.
Yes, indeed. So that's another thing that feels similar to
Age of Ultron.
Age of Ultron, but kind of on a bigger scale, I feel like. We're seeing more of the real world stuff. Right, yeah, Spidey. We have Peter Parker.
But we will get into it right now that, it's great to see Spidey, but when you really look at the context of how this was all brought up, he was basically just shoehorned in. I mean, and I love Spider-Man as much as everybody else, and I know he was in the Civil War comic book, but people need to remember that even though it's called Civil War, this doesn't really follow the comic book to a T.
Correct.
And in this case, Spider-Man is thrown in there just to make people happy. It's window dressing, basically. Everybody pointed out the best comedic moments in this movie came from Spider-Man and Ant-Man.
Which was much needed because it's a very dark tone throughout the whole film. You really don't get it until they come into play.
Right. So you do need a little bit of humor in there because you don't want, everything to be so morbid. This leads to a great scene because Cap's about to get on a helicopter, but then it gets disabled by Iron Man and War Machine, who land in their cool superhero landing, just like Deadpool would say.
Right.
And then Black Widow's there. Black Panther flips into position, and then they're just trying to talk Captain America down, and that, of course, leads to the scene where Iron Man says, "Okay, I've had enough," and then that's when he calls in Spider-Man, and this is, of course, the scene where all the Spider-Man fans love it because he steals Cap's shield, and here he is in his, glory. But, of course, typical humorous moments is he introduces himself to Cap and tells him he's a big fan of his.
Something that makes this movie feel more like an Avengers movie than Age of Ultron did is because there's so many Avengers put in throughout the entire movie,
right,
and it just works and flows so much better. For some reason, even though they both span all over the world, this felt more worldwide.
Yes.
Maybe because it was a little more street level,
right,
I guess, so it makes you feel more in it.
But no, this airport battle, again, believe the hype, is amazing. I mean, when you're on an airport, when you're on an airfield and you have all that space and the broad daylight, it makes for beautiful cinematography with all the teams getting together, the 6-on-6 battle. Spider-Man is, of course, what we love about him. He's an insufferable, little kid who's marking out to all these, superhero idols, and yet he's actually schooling a lot of them because he's a very powerful character, but there's just so many, we can't even go point by point here or else it'll take too long, but there's so many great points in the airport battle.
The craziest thing, though, is what they did, and it was a very ballsy move, is what they did with Rhodey.
Right, War Machine.
With War Machine, yeah, because I thought he was gonna die, like, legitimately. Yes. I mean, when you see blood coming from the nose, it's dark, like I said, it continues that. And then there's the iconic image straight out of the comics where it's Cap and
Iron Man, the
Man
repulsor blast connecting with the vibranium shield.
The shield, yeah.
Now, and again, I'm an Iron Man fan, but I also love Cap, and at this point, even with all the technology in that suit, but in close quarters combat, Captain America has the advantage, and the fight just gets intense from this point. This, I will say, this doesn't top the airport battle, but this is all still pretty dang good. What we're seeing at this point, and this is much more emotional because the airport. It's one of those movie contrasts because the airport battle's taking place in the bright daylight, whereas this is like in the dark, a dark room like below in Siberia, and this is much more emotional because these guys, who they were friends, they didn't always get along, but they were friends, but now they're beating the shit out of each other.
Language.
Oh, for gosh sakes.
Here at Talk Nerdy to Me, for reviews, we have buy, rent, pass. And of course we have variations, which is strong, and just buy, weak buy, strong rent, weak rent.
Right.
Where would you put this?
I would definitely put this as a strong buy. This is not a perfect movie, but this is definitely right up there with one of the best MCU movies to have come out. But this movie is still so good. It balances out all of its characters. It still has probably some of the best fight scenes. But yes, I would definitely say a strong buy. And if you're collecting the MCU movies anyway, of course you're going to buy this.
Right. It's a spectacle that's worth seeing in theaters. So
absolutely.
On that end, it is a strong buy. Now, I wouldn't say it's worth the 3D because I saw it in 3D, not worth the 3D.
I would never say the 3D is not worth it. Skip the 3D. They just want your money.
Exactly. So, but, like I said, definitely worth seeing theaters. So theaters, strong buy. And, of course, Blu-ray, DVD,
absolutely, strong
buy as well. Alright, so thank you for watching. Tell us what you think of the movie. Tell us what you think of these shows, these comics, the manga, whatever you want, whatever you're nerdy into. Talk nerdy with us. Talk nerdy to me. Okay, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. If you're already a subscriber, then all you have to do is like and comment, and I will hook you up with a digital code. This week I have Black Widow number 3, Scarlet Witch number 6, Moon Knight, number 2, Invincible Iron Man, number 9, New Avengers, number 11, All New Inhumans, number 7, Thunderbolts, number 1, Punisher, number 1. So just like, comment, subscribe, and I'll hook you up with a free digital comic.